I didn't expect her to open the door that softly. Or maybe it just sounded soft because everything in me went quiet the second I saw her. She stood there in that hallway light, not dramatic, not posing, just there. A woman who'd lived long enough to hide her feelings, and long enough to fail at hiding them completely. Her hair was swept up like she'd done it in a hurry, a few loose strands brushing her cheekbone. They moved when she breathed. I shouldn't have been staring at something so small, but I was. "Come in," she said, voice even, calm. A bit too calm. I stepped inside, and the door clicked behind us, too gently to be an accident, too final to ignore. She walked past me, and for a moment the scent of her, warm, faintly citrus, a little tired, brushed across my throat. Something tightened in my chest before I could stop it. I kept my eyes on the floor longer than necessary, pretending to adjust my bag, pretending I wasn't thrown off by someone who shouldn't have this effect on me. "You're early," she said. "I didn't think you'd mind." Not a yes. Not a no. Something in between. Her hand brushed the edge of the table as she moved, fingertips tapping once, then stopping, like she'd caught herself doing something revealing. She always hid her nerves in the smallest ways. Pressed lips. Avoided glances. Shoulders held just a little too still. I noticed all of it. Maybe because I wasn't supposed to. I stood there like an idiot for a moment, not sure if I should sit, or speak, or breathe less loudly. She finally looked at me, directly this time. Not long enough to be a problem, just long enough for me to forget the next words I was supposed to say. "You look," I started, then stopped, realizing how stupid the sentence would sound. She raised an eyebrow. "I look what?" "Different," I said. Cowardly choice. Safe. She turned away, but I caught the faintest curve at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile, more like something she didn't allow to reach her face. A quiet moment stretched between us. The kind that feels like someone pulled the air thin. Her bracelet slipped slightly down her wrist as she poured water into 2 glasses. She didn't look up when she asked. "Long day?" "Not really," I said. "Yours?" She let out a short breath. "Longer than usual." She handed me the glass, and her fingers grazed mine, not intentionally, not dramatically, but they lingered for a fraction too long. Warm. Steady. A touch that shouldn't have meant anything but did. She noticed it. I noticed her noticing it. The silence after that felt heavier. I sat down first, mostly because my legs were turning into something unreliable. She sat across from me, folding one knee over the other, posture too composed, like she needed both control and distance. But her eyes kept drifting, once to my hands, once to my mouth, once to the space between us. "You're quiet today," she said. "You're not," I answered before my brain could filter it. Her laugh was small, surprised, and quickly swallowed. "Is that a complaint?" "No," I said immediately. "It's nice." Her gaze held mine again, this time without escaping. Something settled between us, not comfort, not tension, something shakier. Just when she opened her mouth to say something else, her phone buzzed sharply against the table. She froze. Her eyes flicked to the screen. Her expression changed, not fully, just enough to tell me the message wasn't simple. The air tightened. She didn't read it aloud. She didn't explain. She just whispered, "I wasn't expecting this." She didn't explain the message. Just turned her back and stood there with one hand resting on the edge of the table, shoulders tense in a way she probably thought I wouldn't notice. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice not to sound like I cared too much. After a moment, she exhaled slowly and slipped the phone into her pocket without answering it. "Sorry," she murmured. "It's nothing." It wasn't nothing. But she'd built her life around pretending the heavy things were featherlight. She walked toward the window, touching the curtains lightly, brushing dust that wasn't there. A nervous habit. I stayed seated, watching her from the chair, hoping she wouldn't catch me studying the way the evening light touched her face. The faint tiredness under her eyes. The way she held herself like someone who'd been alone long enough to get used to it, and hated that she had. "If you need to go, it's okay," I said quietly. "Oh?" She turned, expression unreadable. "And you think I'd prefer being alone right now?" Her voice wasn't sharp. Just honest in a way she rarely allowed. "I don't know," I said. "You don't really tell me what you prefer." She paused. Something softened, not visible, more like an invisible shift in the air around her. "My last relationship," she said, brushing her fingers along the window frame, "ended because I stopped saying what I wanted. I thought silence would make things easier." I swallowed. "Did it?" "No." A humorless smile. "It made everything worse." The admission was quiet. Barely there. But it cracked something open between us. She stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that the warmth of her reached me. The air felt different, heavier and more fragile at the same time. Her hand grazed my shoulder as she walked past, not fully intentional but not accidental either. My breath stuttered, embarrassingly loud. "I'm not good at this," she said softly, her fingers still hovering near my skin like she wasn't sure if she should move away or let them rest there. "At what?" I asked. Her gaze finally met mine. "Letting someone close again." I almost said something stupid, something comforting, something too bold, but she broke eye contact first, stepping away like she'd realized just how close she'd drifted. "You're young," she added, voice quieter. "People will talk." "I don't care," I said too fast. She closed her eyes for a second, like she felt that sentence land somewhere she wasn't prepared for. "That's the problem," she whispered. Another message buzzed on her phone, but she didn't check it this time. Didn't move. She stood there with her arms folded, pretending the sound hadn't reached her at all. I stood too, almost without meaning to, drawn to the small tremor in her exhale. When she finally looked at me again, the room felt smaller. Too small for the space we needed to pretend nothing was happening. She brushed past me to reach her glass, shoulder grazing my arm, a slow, deliberate slide that made my pulse stumble. She didn't apologize. I didn't step back. 5 seconds. 10. A breath shared in the quiet. When she finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. "You notice too much." "I only notice you," I said. She froze, not in fear, not in shock, in recognition. Her fingers, still holding the glass, brushed mine as she set it down. This time, she didn't pull away. Not immediately. Just long enough to make it unmistakable. She didn't move her hand. Her fingers still brushed mine on the rim of the glass, soft, warm, too steady to be accidental. I felt her pulse before I realized I was feeling my own. But just as the moment tightened between us, her phone buzzed again, louder this time, vibrating against the table like it was demanding attention. She flinched. Not visibly, just a sudden stiffness in her shoulders, a breath caught halfway. "It's fine," she said too quickly, stepping back. It wasn't fine. And the retreat wasn't real, more like something she felt obligated to do. I watched her pick up the phone, thumb hovering but not unlocking it. Whoever was messaging her, she clearly didn't want me to see the name. "You should answer," I said. She shook her head. "Not now." Not now meant not in front of you. She set the phone face down. Before either of us could speak, a sharp knock hit the door. She froze. I froze. 3 quick knocks, familiar enough to make her eyes widen. "Oh no," she whispered, voice tight. "It's probably." She didn't finish the name, but I could hear the panic threaded through her whisper. She gestured urgently toward the hallway, her breath brushing my cheek as she leaned in. "Go, just stay out of sight." I stepped back automatically, the heat of her proximity still clinging to my skin. She opened the door halfway, blocking whoever it was from looking inside. A woman's voice. Soft, curious. "Hey, I was passing by and thought I'd check in. You didn't answer my calls." "I was resting," she replied, keeping her tone light. Resting. While her chest rose and fell too quickly, and my heartbeat thudded in my ears. Are you alone? The visitor asked. A pause. Too long. Too telling. Yes, she said finally. Just tired. I saw her fingers tighten on the doorframe. Her lie hung in the air like a fragile thread. The visitor lingered, suspicious but polite. All right. If you need anything, call me. You've been distant lately. I'm fine, she said softer. When she finally closed the door, she didn't move for a moment, her forehead resting briefly against the wood, shoulders sinking with a quiet exhale. She looked like someone who'd almost been caught doing something she wasn't ready to name. I waited until she turned around. You okay? I asked. She let out a shaky laugh. This is complicated. The word wasn't wrong. It just wasn't enough. She walked toward me again, slowly this time, as if each step needed permission from her own hesitation. Her fingers brushed my arm when she passed, light as breath, but her hand lingered there longer than before. I shouldn't have asked you to hide, she murmured. You didn't want her to misunderstand, I said. She gave me a look, brief, deep, the kind that held a truth she wasn't ready to say out loud. People always misunderstand, she whispered. Especially when the age gap is this obvious. It wasn't judgment. It was fear. But fear and longing sat strangely close together. She sank onto the sofa, and I sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that our knees almost brushed. The space between us felt charged, delicate, dangerous. You almost kissed me earlier, she said suddenly. I inhaled sharply. You didn't move away. She stared at my mouth for a second too long. I didn't know if I should, she confessed. Heat pooled in the quiet between us, a suspended breath, a single heartbeat stretched thin. I leaned in just a little. She mirrored me without meaning to. Not a kiss. Not yet. But the air trembled with the possibility of it. Her hand slid onto mine, hesitant, trembling, and she didn't pull back. If anything, she moved closer. Closer than she ever had. She didn't let go of my hand. Not this time. Her fingers tightened, slowly, deliberately, like she made the decision in some quiet place inside herself that she couldn't retreat from anymore. The air between us grew warm, too warm, and her breath brushed the side of my wrist as she leaned just a little closer. You're shaking, I said quietly. No, she whispered, though the faint tremor in her voice betrayed her. That's just everything catching up to me. Everything. The messages. The lies at the door. The age gap she kept pretending was a wall instead of a doorway. She pulled in a slow breath, and when she looked at me, something in her guard cracked for the first time. I don't know how to control this, she said, eyes flicking to my mouth before she forced them back up. You make it difficult. Her confession hit harder than she intended. My heartbeat stumbled against my ribs, loud enough that I hoped she couldn't hear it. I'm not trying to, I murmured. I know, she said, shaking her head gently. That's what makes it worse. The words weren't angry. They were frightened in a way she didn't want to reveal. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, but her hand faltered halfway. Without thinking, I reached up and finished the motion, my fingers brushing the soft line of her jaw, tracing just enough warmth to make her breath catch. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second. Don't, she whispered. But she didn't move away. Not even an inch. Tell me to stop, I said softly. She opened her eyes. They weren't steady. They weren't calm. They were searching, for strength, for excuses, for reasons to hold her ground. She didn't find any. Instead, she leaned forward, her forehead almost touching mine. Her scent surrounded me, something warm, lived in, real, and when she exhaled, it trembled in the space between us. You don't understand, she said. If I cross this line, I won't be able to pretend afterward. Then don't pretend, I whispered. Her breath hitched. A small, sharp sound she didn't mean to make. She drew even closer, her knee brushing mine, her thigh warm against my leg. The contact felt accidental at first, then intentional, then necessary. I saw you with her earlier, she said suddenly, voice taut. That girl who kept asking you things. She looked at you like what? I asked, recognizing the edge in her tone. Like she wanted you. She snapped softly, before catching herself. She inhaled sharply, gripping the fabric of her own sleeve as though steadying something inside her. And I hated that. I hated that more than I should. Jealousy. The gentlest, most involuntary kind. I leaned closer, my voice low near her ear. Why? Her eyes flicked to mine, raw, unfiltered. Because you look at me like I matter. My chest tightened. She swallowed hard, her hand rising slowly, hesitantly, until her fingertips rested against my jaw. The touch was feather-light, uncertain, but charged with something neither of us could pretend we didn't feel anymore. If I kiss you, she murmured, her lips inches from mine, I won't be able to undo it. I won't be able to go back to being careful. I breathed her in, every inch of restraint slipping. Then don't be careful. Her lips parted, just slightly. Her forehead touched mine. Her breath mingled with mine. 1 second. 2. 3. We were a heartbeat away from crossing everything. She whispered, Say it. Say you want this. I did. I want you. Her eyes widened, and then the door handle turned. The door handle turned. She jerked back, not far, but enough that the warmth between us snapped like a stretched thread. Her hand slipped from my jaw, mine hovered uselessly in the air, still aching with the memory of her skin. Before either of us could breathe, the door opened. Her friend, the same voice from earlier, stepped halfway inside before freezing. Oh. A single, sharp syllable. Not loud. Worse. Her eyes flicked from me, to the closeness of our chairs, to the way her chest rose too quickly, to the faint flush at the base of my throat. I knocked, she said, voice tight. You didn't answer. The older woman began, but her voice broke. She cleared her throat. I didn't hear. The lie was too soft, too fragile. And her friend heard every crack in it. Her gaze sharpened. So, this is why you've been distant. My mouth dried. The older woman stood a little straighter, shoulders locking. It's not what you think. Her friend's stare cut to me, long, assessing, almost sympathetic. Is it not? Silence. Heavy, suffocating. The older woman stepped forward, placing herself subtly in front of me. Protective. Fearful. It made something hot twist inside my chest. You should go, she said quietly. I should, her friend replied, not moving. But he needs to know. My pulse stumbled. She turned her attention fully to me. Those messages she's been ignoring? They were from him. My stomach dropped. The older woman closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face for the smallest, barest second. Her friend continued, softer now. Her ex came back. He wants another chance. My breath left me. The older woman finally spoke, her voice barely steady. It's not like that. He's just someone from the past. Someone who knows how to push. And you didn't tell him? Her friend asked, nodding toward me. The older woman flinched, so subtle it might have been missed by anyone else. But I saw it. I felt it. The truth hit harder than jealousy. She hadn't told me. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know how to. Her friend sighed, stepping back. Just be careful. He won't like knowing you're not alone. With that, she left. The door clicked shut. Soft. Too soft. The older woman didn't move. One hand rested on the table, trembling almost imperceptibly. You should have told me, I said, voice low. I know. She turned slightly, her profile sharp in the dim light. I didn't because it felt like admitting something I wasn't ready for. What? That you wanted me here? Her breath hitched. I stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel my presence. Close enough that her shoulders stiffened, then softened. She whispered, If he finds out you were here tonight. Her throat tightened. He'll assume the worst. What's the worst? I asked. She turned to face me fully, and I saw it, the fear, the desire, the ache of someone pulled in two directions. That I've already let someone else in. Silence. Her chest rose. Mine followed. And have you? I asked quietly. Her hand lifted halfway, as if drawn by instinct. She almost touched my face, almost, but stopped a breath away, trembling. I don't know how to stop, she whispered. Her forehead lowered, resting lightly against my shoulder, soft, desperate, surrendering without meaning to. The decision in that tiny movement was undeniable. Whatever line we'd been dancing around. They stood close enough to feel each other's breath, close enough that neither could pretend the distance between them still existed. The room had fallen into a hush, the kind that happens not because the world is quiet, but because two people realize they've run out of excuses to look away. His chest rose unevenly, hers steadied only because she forced it to. Their shoulders almost brushed. Almost. That thin strip of air between them held everything they hadn't said, everything they'd kept locked behind careful smiles and safer conversations. A soft tension pulsed between them, warm, electric, unsteady. Their voices dropped without planning it, like instinct had taken over and decided that anything louder would break whatever delicate thread held them together in this moment. I need to know, one of them whispered. Not a demand. Not even a question. More like a confession, quiet, scared, but honest. The other swallowed, eyes searching the face inches away. If I cross this line, everything changes. And that was the truth either had been willing to face until now. They weren't standing at the edge of something small. They were standing at the edge of something that could rewrite their entire story. The air felt thicker, like it was urging them to choose, step forward and admit what this connection had become, or step back and pretend the fire wasn't already burning through them. A trembling breath broke the silence. The kind that gives away far more than words ever could. The kind that says I feel this too. One step. Just one. That was all it would take. But stepping closer meant surrendering to everything: want, fear, vulnerability, possibility. It meant letting someone see the parts carefully hidden from the world. And stepping away? That meant safety. Clarity. The comfort of pretending this moment had never existed. A hand lifted slightly, stopping in midair, unsure whether it belonged nearer to a touch or a retreat. Fingers curled, then loosened. A sign of the battle happening beneath the surface. You don't have to choose desire, one murmured, voice shaking with truth. You just have to choose what's real. The other finally exhaled, the sound almost breaking. That's the problem. This is real. Maybe too real. Their foreheads nearly touched now, just a whisper apart, close enough to feel the warmth, the hesitation, the hope. Close enough to sense the question lingering between them: do we leap? For a brief moment, the world held its breath. The whole room seemed to tilt toward the answer neither dared to speak aloud. Then, gently, deliberately, one of them stepped forward, not closing the gap completely, but closing enough of it to make the choice clear. I'm done pretending, they said softly. Whatever this is, I'm not walking away from it. The other's eyes softened, the tension dissolving into something deeper, steadier: recognition. Understanding. Acceptance. In that moment, the air changed. The fear didn't vanish, but it settled. The want didn't explode, but it steadied into something real. And for the first time, they fully understood each other. The night settled around them like a soft blanket, quieter now, calmer than the whirlwind that had brought them to this point. They stood close, not charged with the same trembling tension as before, but with something steadier, something that felt like a choice already made. For the first time, either of them seemed unsure of where to place their hands or how to hold their breath. The storm between them had eased into a warm, lingering glow. Are you okay? One of them asked, voice low, careful but sincere. A small smile answered. Yeah. I think I finally am. They didn't rush toward each other, but instead moved with the kind of slow certainty that comes only after a truth has been spoken aloud. Their fingers brushed, just a soft graze, but it carried more meaning than any dramatic declaration. That single touch said, "We're doing this together." The age gap, the doubts, the what-ifs, they were still there, but now they felt smaller, less like walls and more like things they could navigate side by side. They weren't pretending the world would suddenly make everything simple. They were choosing to face it anyway. One of them reached out fully this time, sliding their hand into the other's. Their fingers interlocked naturally, like they'd been waiting for the chance to fit together. The warmth of that connection settled the last of the shaking nerves in their chests. "You know," one said with a nervous laugh, "I spent so long convincing myself this was wrong." "And now?" the other asked. "Now it just feels honest." There was no need for a grand speech. No need to list every fear and every doubt they'd wrestled with. They both knew the truth. What scared them wasn't the age difference, or the timing, or the opinions of the world. What scared them was how real this felt. How deeply it already mattered. A moment later, one of them stepped forward, closing the remaining distance for good. Their arms slipped around the other in a slow, full embrace, one that didn't rush, didn't hold back, didn't apologize. It was the kind of hug that felt like arriving somewhere safe after wandering too long. Their heads rested lightly against each other's shoulders. The rise and fall of their breathing synced. The warmth of their bodies eased everything tight inside them. And then, almost without thinking, one of them lifted a hand and brushed a gentle kiss against the other's forehead. Soft. Intentional. A promise without a single word attached. It wasn't the kind of moment meant to set the world on fire. It was quieter, more precious, a small beginning forged in sincerity rather than heat. When they finally pulled back, they didn't step away. Instead, they sat down together, shoulders touching, hands still intertwined, letting the silence settle around them like a shared secret. No more hesitation. No more running in circles. Just two people who had finally stopped trying to resist something that felt right. Together. Clearly. Fully. And as the night deepened outside, they stayed like that, close, steady, and certain of whatever came next.